North Korea is set to hold its key party congress later this month, where Kim Jong-un is expected to lay out his major policy directions for the next 5 years on fields including military, diplomacy, and the economy. For more on this, we're joined today by Professor Mason Richey, Professor of International Politics at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Professor Richey, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So what should we be watching for at the upcoming Party Congress in North Korea?
Yeah, so these party congresses, which Kim Jong-un has sort of reinstituted, and this being his third one now, 7th, 8th, and 9th party congresses after a long period when his father did not hold them, as traditionally was the case, now provide a chance to see a sort of moment when North Korea's party leadership, and obviously Kim in particular, sort of take stock of where the country is, where it has come over the previous 5 years, and then looking forward to the next 5 years. So I think we can sort of get an assessment of the last 5 years in military, economy, diplomacy, as well as a look into the pecking order of the regime leadership. And then obviously we'll see the priorities and strategic direction for the next 5 years. On the military front, I'd say, we'll be looking back at the nuclear and missile achievements, which were outlined in the 8th Party Congress, as well as conventional improvements to the military. And then he'll take stock of those, presumably, and then look forward to new priorities, including a continued arsenal build out on their nuclear weapons. I would be interested to see in what way there might be some hidden clues of any possible future nuclear testing. Obviously, we'll probably see some mention to the nuclear-powered strategic submarines that they're rolling out, incremental improvements in the consolidation of their ongoing technology, such as hypersonic warheads, hypersonic glide vehicles, and tactical nuclear warheads. Military satellites, and probably drones, which of course is something they've learned a lot about in the context of the Russia-Ukraine war. On the economy front, obviously agriculture and food are huge issues there, and food security. I'm sure we'll see some discussion of that and how to modernize agriculture. They'll probably fet some of the modern conveniences that have come online, some private car ownership and phones and things like that. Building projects in Pyongyang and beyond, for instance, the Pyongyang General Hospital, and then amenities such as the ski resorts and water parks and things like that. So I think there'll be a re-emphasis on self-reliance. I'd be interested to see if there's any discussion of trade, and then diplomacy. North Korea is going to get into how self-reliant it is, the difficult international environment, and I think that we'll see a sort of continuation of the diplomatic line, which has become increasingly hard-edged over the last 5 years.
Right. What kind of message do you expect the regime to send towards South Korea and the United States? Are we, likely to hear stronger rhetoric aimed at Seoul and Washington?
Yeah, so for South Korea, it's entirely possible that South Korea goes more or less unmentioned explicitly. It might well be ignored. That's been a tactic that North Korea has taken towards South Korea quite regularly in recent years. I think we might see presumably a restatement of the evolution of North Korea's policy towards South Korea, in terms of South Korea now being considered an implacable, hostile state and an enemy, and it might be worth seeing whether or not the Workers' Party of Korea, changes some of its bylaws and some of the language in its party documents with respect to, for instance, unification, because there are still some mentions of that sort of thing in party bylaws and in party documents, which are not really in accord so much with the rhetoric and the sort of official line that Kim has been taking in recent years. Vis-a-vis the United States, I think that we'll find, at best, probably some type of mention that the door for discussion is open, with the subtext being if and only if the United States somehow recognizes North Korea as a pure nuclear power. And I think the reason for that, disinterest in relations with the U.S. is, among other things, for the moment, simply that there's still, I think, a sense in North Korea in which they're looking through the optic of continuing to work with China and in particular Russia, notably in the context of the Ukraine-Russia war, and trying to get what it can out of those relationships before it might eventually pivot to diplomacy with the United States. I'd also be interested to see perhaps to what degree Japan comes in for some attack. The Arirang just published another editorial banging on Japan for its evolution of what Korea calls its hostile policy. So North Korea might come in, Japan might come in for some attack from North Korea as well.
I see. And ahead of that party congress, North Korea said Kim Jong-un visited the defense ministry this week to mark their founding anniversary of their armed forces. And he called for an expanded role for the military. What's your take on this?
Well, the first thing I think about is how much bigger a role do they want the military to have there? The military is already deeply ingrained into almost every part of North Korean life. It serves basically a military function, but it also has an economic function as a sort of ersatz labor force. Obviously, the conscription periods there are extremely long. The economy, is eaten up to a significant degree by funding for the military, and the military itself is involved in a lot of economic activities in the state. So it's hard to imagine that it can take a larger role. It's practically a garrison state as it is now. I think one way to read that is, as I mentioned, perhaps the thought that Kim is really going to want to try to parallel the nuclear and missile developments the last 5 to 7 years with now an improvement, sort of similar scale in the conventional military forces. And that's worrisome insofar as, to some degree, one might be willing to believe that in a lot of ways the nuclear weapon development has domestic propaganda purposes as well as a deterrent purpose. But if you start talking about improving your conventional military, that might actually be for operational use. And of course, here the worry would be that North Korea might be emboldened to use an improved conventional military for some types of attack across the border or along the northern limit line in the Yellow Sea.
Right, I see. All right, Professor Richey, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Great. Thank you for having me.